Journals on the Gallery TV News on the Ham. My name is Titilayo Olamide, and first are the news headlines. President Buhari to present 2022 budget to National Assembly. At least 2 injured as fire got Federal Secretariat Abuja. Niger State government announces new emir of Kotangora. We are marking independence with Eko on show, says Lagos State government. And on business report, NCC says no plan to disqualify Nigerians under 18 years from getting SIM cards. And on 2022 budget, expect more borrowing to finance 6.258 trillion naira deficit, says federal government. And on entertainment news, fans celebrate World Whiskey Day. Plus, James Bond star Daniel Craig gets Hollywood Walk of Fame star. And now the news in details. President Buhari to present 2022 budget to National Assembly. President Muhammadu Buhari is expected to present the 2022 budget to a joint session of the National Assembly on Thursday. The Federal Executive Council on Wednesday had approved a 16.39 trillion naira budget. At least 5.012 trillion naira is to be financed by borrowing, raising concerns over the nation's debt sustainability. The Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, has said the government needs to borrow to finance developmental projects in the form of roads, rail, bridges, power and water for sustainable development in this country. At least 2 injured as fire got Federal Secretariat Abuja. At least 2 people have been injured in a fire that engulfed a part of the Federal Secretariat complex in Abuja on Wednesday. Eyewitnesses told newsmen that they jumped from the second floor where the fire started and injured themselves. According to one eyewitness, the fire started on the second floor of the first phase of the complex, which houses the Federal Ministry of Education. Officials of the Federal Fire Service, FSS, battled the fire for hours before it was finally put off after deploying 4 firefighting trucks. Located in the 3-arm zone of the nation's capital, the complex houses major federal ministries, departments, and agencies. Niger State government announces new emir of Kotangora. The Niger State government announces Mohammed Baru as the 7th emir of Kotangora. This is coming on the heels of an earlier disputed selection done on the 19th of September after the demise of the late emir. The Honorable Commissioner for Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs, Emmanuel Umar, discussed those who are speaking to pressmen at the government house in Minna. We are marking independence with Eko on show, says Lagos State government. The Lagos State government has announced a special live festival tagged Eko on show to commemorate Nigeria's 64th independence anniversary. Speaking at the media unveiling of the festival, the Commissioner for Tourism, Arts and Culture, Uzamat Akimbile Yusuf, said Lagos is marking this year's independence anniversary is a different way and thus the coming of Eko on show. The event, which is set to hold on 15th October, will be an hybrid festival featuring an exhilarating line of some of Nigeria's top entertainment icons. Mr. Akimbile Yusuf noted that the festival is designed to raise the spirits of Lagosians, to give them inspiration and entertain them with the rich and vibrant culture of Lagos and its people. The festival will be headlined Arista, K1, Chino Peters, as well as Davido, the band, Tiwa Savage, and Tenny. going on the short break, and then while we come back, the news continues shortly after. Stay tuned.
In life, you can never be too sure who to trust. This is the story of Mrs. Ungozi. Mrs. Ungozi just wants to use the ATM.
Good afternoon, Mama. Let me help you out to your withdrawal. You don't need to stress yourself.
Thank you, but I can handle it myself.
The man is just being kind, right? He just wants to help, right? Wrong. All he needs is a good look at the pin. Will he succeed?
I want my IG fans. I say, sorry.
Do not share your card PIN with anyone. Keep your account information private and ensure no one is watching you while you enter your PIN. UBA, Africa's global bank.
Welcome back from that break. With that, we move to our business report. NCC says no plan to disqualify Nigerians under 18 years from getting SIM cards. The Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC) has denied claims that it plans to disqualify Nigerians below 18 years of age from getting subscriber identity module SIM cards. A media report Wednesday claimed that the NCC was planning to stop Nigerians under 18 years from having access to SIM cards. The commission said parents and guardians can acquire SIMs for the children enrolled under 18 years, but be ready to take responsibilities for whatever might happen thereafter. NCC, in a statement signed by its Director of Public Administration, Dr. Ikechukwu Adinde, described the story which claimed it planned to stop access to SIM cards by Nigerians below 18 years as misleading, inaccurate, and mischaracterization of the proceedings of the public inquiry on the reviewed draft registration of telephone subscribers regulations, which took place on Tuesday, October 6, 2021. The Commission said it considered it necessary to set the record straight for the purpose of serving existing and potential telecom subscribers, investors, and other stakeholders in the industry accurate information for making informed decisions. It explained that in accordance with Sections 70 and 71 of the Nigeria Communications Act (NCA) 2003, any Commission's consultative engagement process, which defined its rule-making process, the public inquiry was held for all relevant stakeholders to provide input on the draft regulatory instruments. NCC noted that while it is progressively pursuing digital inclusion for all, the draft proposal is intended to guarantee increased monitoring of children and shield the minors from undue liabilities in line with NCC's Child Online Protection Drive. Still on Business Report 2022 budget, expect more borrowing to finance 6.258 trillion naira deficit, says federal government. Despite outcry and protests against the administration's spend charge for frequent borrowing, the federal government yesterday hinted of its plan to borrow more to finance the 6.258 trillion deficit in the proposed 2022 budget. This was disclosed after the Federal Executive Council FEC approved 16.39 trillion naira for 2022 appropriation bill. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, who briefed newsmen, stated that the administration will continue to borrow to fund infrastructure projects as the government does not get much from its revenue sources. Justifying government's position, Ahmed said Nigeria's revenue could barely accommodate services, noting that despite the concerns, its borrowings are within acceptable limits as the total money borrowed as of July 22 and 23% of the gross domestic product (GDP). The minister said council also noted the changes in the 2022 to 2024 fiscal projections based on implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act (PIA) 2021 and other necessary expenditures that should be accommodated in 2022 budget. She predicated the key assumptions and targets underlying the budget provisions to include oil price at $57 per barrel, oil production at 1.88 mbpd, exchange rate at 410.10 naira 15 kobo per dollar, oil revenue at 3.15 trillion naira, and non-oil revenue at 2.13 trillion naira. Other assumptions are federal government's independent revenue of 1.82 trillion naira, total projected federal government revenue of 10.13 trillion naira, debt service of 3.61 trillion naira, statutory transfers of 768.228 billion naira, including 462.53 billion naira capital components, and personnel costs and pensions of 4.69 trillion naira. Ahead of today's budget presentation to the National Assembly by President Muhammadu Buhari, the Senate yesterday hurriedly approved the President's revised submission of the 2022 to 2024 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework (MTEF). The Senate President Ahmed Lawan, after receiving the revised submission, referred it to the Committee on Finance on Tuesday for expeditious consideration within 24 hours. Hence, the approval of the revised framework yesterday followed the hasty consideration of the report by the Committee on Finance. The Senate, in its recommendation, approved the aggregate expenditure of 16.29 trillion naira from the previous 13.98 trillion naira for next year. Meanwhile, financial experts have described the ambitious 16.45 trillion naira proposed spending outlay to be presented today at the National Assembly as worthless and unachievable targets. This, they state, on the back of weak budget performance, contracting revenues, and rising fiscal deficits. A financial analyst and economist, David Adori, described budgets as academic exercise embarked upon to fulfill all righteousness as against economic development tools they are originally meant to serve. Nigeria has in recent years adopted an expansionary fiscal stance which the revenue mobilization capacity has either contracted or remained stagnant. In many cases, projected fiscal deficits exceeded projected shortfalls by as much as close to 100% as revenues did. Buhari will present the appropriation amid what many have seen as a poor scorecard for the 2021 budget performance as reviewed by the National Budget Office, an agency of the government. According to the performance documents just released by the office, half-year actual revenue was 20% short of the estimated 4.2 trillion naira the federal government aspires to release. Within the next 6 months, the government's total revenue generated was 3.38 trillion naira, but for the accurate bill from the value-added tax VAT, which was 8% above the targeted 1.7 trillion naira, the shortfall would be worse. The revenue and expenditure outturn of the federal government resulted in a fiscal deficit of 3.5 trillion naira, 4.4% of pro-rate GDP in the first half of 2021. This was 1.38 trillion naira, 42.5% above the projected half-year deficit of 2.4 trillion naira. It was also above the 2.8 trillion naira deficit posted in the first half of 2020. The Budget Office said the deficit was financed through domestic borrowing of 1.2 trillion naira, thereby reflecting negative net financing of 2.2 trillion naira. This has been the trend in recent years. In 2020, less than 51% of 10.8 trillion naira targeted total revenue was achieved. The 49.4% shortfall short of the projected fiscal deficit of 6.6 trillion naira. The amount was 2 trillion naira or 43 higher than the projected fiscal deficit of 4.6 trillion naira for the year. The 2020 fiscal deficit was also higher than the 4.2 trillion naira recorded in 2019. Also, the national debt ballooned following the expanded fiscal deficit to 35.5 trillion naira at the end of the second quarter. Of the total value, 83.07% was held by the federal government, while the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory (FCT) borrowings accounted for 16.93%. The percentage of the federal government's share of the national debt had increased from 81.94% as of December 2020 to its current share. Experts, including the Director General of Debt Managing Office, Patience Oinia, expressed concern that unless the revenue profile is raised substantially, the country would face debt sustainability challenges. The federal government is proposing a fresh borrowing of at least 15 trillion naira in the 2022 to 2024 medium-term expenditure framework fiscal stability paper (MTEF) FSP. Already, there is the 10 trillion naira Ways and Means Facility (WMF) with the Central Bank of Nigeria (CBN), which the DMO said will be converted to a long-term debt instrument. The country's debt servicing to revenue ratio jumped from 54.7% in 2019 to 72% in 2020. An expert said the figure could go higher before the end of the year, except other steps are taken to shore up earnings. Whereas experts have called on the government to reduce the cost of governance, government officials, including the Director General of the Budget Office, Dr. Ben Akabuize, have insisted that the problem is more of for earnings than extravagant spending. Speaking on the history of failed targets, yesterday, Adonri dismissed the annual budget as only good for academic exercise. He said the government may have done its estimates on mere hope without thorough analysis. A professor of economics at the Olabisi Onabanjo University, Sharafdin Teller, said a 20% shortfall in revenue mobilization for the first half of the year was not too a bad performance. He said more revenues could be realized from sources to make up in the next few months before the end of the year. And with that, we move to entertainment news. Fans celebrate World Whiskey Day. Multiple award-winning singer Wizkid is currently trending at number 3 on the Nigerian Twitter space, courtesy of his fans who are celebrating World Whiskey Day. Although the star boy was born on July 16, 1990, he is celebrated every October 6, thanks to a former governor of Minnesota, Mark Dayton, who proclaimed the date Whiskey Day in 2018. According to the document, which was officially signed, stamped and sealed by the former governor during his tenure, the reason behind the declaration was to honor Wizkid for his laudable achievements in music and for his role as a cultural influencer. Some of the singer's achievements as mentioned in the document include being the first African artist to sell out the Skyway Theatre, Minneapolis, making a Billboard #1 hit Dance One with Drake, selling out the O2 Arena London, walking the runway as the model for Dolce and Gabbana, winning countless international awards among other notable milestone achievements. Nigerians took to Twitter to celebrate Big Wiz, and so far the discussion has garnered over 20,000 tweets. Still on entertainment news, James Bond star Daniel Craig gets Hollywood Walk of Fame star. The British star Daniel Craig has capped the launch week of his final James Bond movie by becoming the 2,704th celebrity to be honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in California. It was unveiled outside 7,007 Hollywood Boulevard in honor of the fictional British spy's code number. Just yet away is the star of his predecessor as Bond, Sir Roger Moore, BBC reports. Craig, who has played 007 since 2006, said it was an absolute honor to walk all over in Hollywood. The 53-year-old was introduced by Bond producers Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, along with his co-star in the latest 007 outing, No Time to Die, Rami Malek. No Time to Die won critical praise and earned the highest opening weekend takings of any Bond movie in UK after repeated delays to its release date because of the coronavirus pandemic. The film opens in the US on Friday. Malek, who won an Oscar for his portrayal of Queen singer Freddie Mercury in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, plays supervillain Safin in the latest installment of Bond's adventures. Speaking at the ceremony, he praised Craig as an actor and a colleague. And with that, we've come to the end of the Gallery TV News Bulletin this hour. Don't forget to join us again by 4 p.m. for yet another update. I remain Titilayo Olamide. Thanks for watching. You have a lovely day.